And welcome to Radio MVP, episode number 8 of the Sports Podcast. Hi, everyone. I'm Tim Continenza in Boardman, Ohio, and in Canfield, Ohio is Anthony Kepley, as we're going to be continuing talking about the NBA Finals, which we just got done with Game 3 yesterday. Game 5 of the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs or championship is going on as we speak. Their finals. And Pittsburgh's up 4-0 in that one and holding home ice. So we'll talk more about that. And, of course, the Buckeyes with the coaching situation and what's going on there. A lot to get to, plus baseball going on. And we'll spend a moment or two talking a little baseball just for the fun of it, too. But there's a lot to get to. And it's been a really, really week here in the world of sports, Anthony. And let's kick it off quickly with the NFL, or excuse me, the NBA, as I tell you exactly what I'm thinking about everything anymore. But hey, that's just the way it goes. But look at the NBA Finals last night. Cavs had their opportunities. I think you've seen the dominance of an all-star team, as we talked about before with Durant, as they took over in the fourth quarter. But I didn't expect to be down 3-0 if you were a Cavs fan, but if you told me they were down 1-2, I would say, yeah, that's probably realistic. Or even if you would say, hey, maybe they got the upset going and they're up 2-1 and it was going to be a long series. Those predictions have gone to the wayside. And what's your original thought about Game 3 last night?
I got to be honest. I didn't watch much more than maybe a couple minutes. I had to be up at 4:30 this morning for work. So it's more of a box score reading day. But, I think it went how we projected it to go. The Cavs will look a lot more comfortable, a lot more locked in. I don't want to say they haven't been focused all series because that, every team's focused on the NBA Finals. I just think we saw a more relaxed Cavs team. That's playing with house money and really no pressure on them. Now, let's be honest, everybody and their brother in the media has already pronounced Golden State as the 2017 NBA champions, and a lot locally have too, especially on the radio today, hearing that one certain reporter will not watch Game 4 because he's sick of them. And I think that's kind of outrageous. If you're a fan,
kind of foolish.
Yeah. Hey, if you're a fan, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, I think. Look, I think Cleveland started to figure it out the past 2 games. They had 20 turnovers forced in Game 2, and they were in that until the late stage of the third quarter. Until it reminds me of every great team you play, no matter what sport it is. You have to survive the initial punch, and the Cavs did that in Game 2. And they did that last night. And then you got to withstand that run. You always know a run's coming. We see it in every sport, and we saw it this year with Carolina against Gonzaga. We've seen it with Duke. We've seen it with Kansas. We've seen it in football, with the Patriots. LeBron's playing. If you just look at the box scores, LeBron has better numbers than Durant this series. He's almost even, or he's right with Durant in every statistical category of this finals. I heard a good point today on the radio. Is Durant making his teammates better, or Curry and Thompson and Green making him better? And I think it's the latter. I know. It wouldn't shock me, though. Cleveland's figured some stuff out. I really think they figured some stuff out. Irving is playing really well right now. I know people are going to call me crazy and all that. And I know, look, they're down 3-0. Are they going to win the series? No. Let's be honest. But, Tim, it wouldn't shock me if we see Game 6.
That would – yeah, look, it has happened in the past where teams had a 3-0 lead and the team who was trailing with no wins at this stage in the game came back to win the next 2 and forced a Game 6. It could happen. I won't say it can't happen or won't happen or will happen. I'm just going to, I agree with you. There's the possibility of that happening, and it's not for the Stars saying that. I agree with that statement completely. Now, I look at what happened in Game 3, and I watched it. And what you've seen was, like you mentioned earlier, is a team that was much more comfortable in the surroundings at home. It had its fans behind them. It had its home court. It's been on all year long. And it played a very good game for the most part. Now, down the stretch, you can talk about strategy and how they handled not going for, the 2-for-1 with less than a minute to play in the game, that type of thing. And you could talk about missing 9 shots with 3 minutes left in the ball game. I mean, those are just realities of what happened in the game. And, you gave Golden State Warriors the opportunity to have the 11-0 run in the fourth quarter and outscore the Cavs 29-19 in the ball game in the fourth quarter to win it. And and I don't want to take anything away from the Warriors for what they achieved, because that was a great comeback and an opportunity to win a game, a Game 3 and take full command of this series, and that's what they did. The Cavs, I mean, I'm sure after that game was a little shocked to certain ways that they lost it, but you look at that game, they kept going for the knockout punch with the 3.5 minutes left in the ball game. Trying to hit a three-pointer. They missed all 5 of them, and they missed the inside shots. But you look, like you mentioned in the box scores, I think something that really stands out, 11 points off their bench. And it's so difficult to win when a team only scores 11 points off the bench, and 8 of those come from one player in Kyle Korver. And, it's a telling tale. And then you look at, like you mentioned, LeBron and Kyrie both scoring a combined 77 points, and it tells you a lot about what happened. Kevin Love didn't have his best game offensively, but he played terrifically defensively. He had, I think, 13 rebounds. He had like 5 steals or something. I mean, it was really a phenomenal effort on a defensive end by Love to keep you in the ball game. It's just you have to recognize the scenario you're in. They went for the deep threes and didn't hit them late in the ball game. And in the process, if they attacked the hoop, foul, gone to the line, and possibly got some easy points, or maybe even made a few layups, yeah, they probably could have, and they look back and as a lost opportunity. And in series, a 7-game series when you're trailing 2-0, you can't make those type of mistakes. Very well. I think the Cavs can win Game 4. I'm not sure they will, simply because it's a deflating situation when you're down 3-0. And when you had a game that you probably should have put in your win column in Game 3 and let it slip away. And I don't want to take anything away from Golden State. They played enough defense to get it done. They made the shots when they had to down the stretch. And, those are the things you have to give them credit for what they achieved. Throughout this series, you have to say Golden State has been the better team.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Cavaliers have played well. I think they've definitely have honored themselves in a sense of getting back to the finals and being defending champions. But this is so much more than just, legacy of one player versus another, or a legacy of one team versus the other team. This is just about competition. You look at it, Golden State has won all 3 games because they've outplayed the Cavaliers. Yep. And that's the bottom line. And it's not that, we need to slow the game down and you could take less shots and that. The Cavaliers have been playing an up-tempo game the entire season. They've been scoring 115 to 120 every night, most of the night. Their defense has been sporadic and has shown up here in the finals. And that was the biggest concern we talked about, throughout the playoffs is, can the Cavs, turn that switch defensively and, make stops when they need to. Unfortunately, maybe the last 4 games of the season, they haven't really, 5 games of the season, they really haven't been able to do that. That game against the Celtics where they lost the big lead and the Celtics got their one win was what I'm talking about. They couldn't make a stop defensively, when they had the big lead, and they lost it, and they lost a close game. And that's basically what happened. In the opposite view, you had the lead, you had the 9-point lead, you had an opportunity, and slowly but surely you let it slip away because your defense couldn't make a stop, and your offense was trying to get that knockout punch, which just never came. And in the process, I thought, left the door wide open for a Durant to hit the three to take the lead and really take command of the series. And they did. And I give all the credits to the Warriors and their coaching staff and the players for taking advantage of opportunities, because every game's, you may have one opportunity to really seize control, and they battled the entire game. And when the Cavaliers took a lead late in the game, when they hit that three by J.R. Smith with 3 minutes and I think 19 seconds left in the ball game, I felt confident that they probably would score about 125 in the game and win this one. Tough win, but they would gut it out. And from that point on, they went ice cold, going 0 for 9 and 0 for 5 from the 3-point line. But you just, you can't continue to do the same thing and expect better results when you're not succeeding. You have to take control of the game. And unfortunately, they're not built that way. Cavaliers is the type of team that tries to throw the knockout punch and succeed doing it. This year, succeeded most of the season doing it, and now I've run into a team who can actually deliver that punch better than they can.
Yeah, it's you look at the 0 for 9 to end the game, and if you make 33% of your shots, you win the game. If you just shoot 33% in the last 3 minutes of the game, you win the game. I think, going back to what we talked about before Game 1 last Sunday, I had made 2 points that the winner of the series will be determined between the Kyrie Irving, Stephen Curry matchup winner and how Tristan Thompson plays. And I think we've seen Tristan Thompson has not played very well. He cannot be
in Game 3, though. I give him, I won't say he's at an all-star level, but he came and played better in Game 3. Now, Game 2, he was missing. I ain't going to deny that. And Game 1 was, unfortunately, once they fell completely behind, it was over early. It didn't really matter. Mm-hmm. But anyone who wants to point out his absence in Game 2, I totally agree with. I thought he played better. He's not a guy who's going to go out and score, 18 points and lead a team offensively. He'll have a game or two during a regular season like that, but that's not his game. He's more like a Rodman who's going to go after that offensive rebound, be relentless, get the garbage points when they appear, and maybe hit a shot or two, that surprises a defensive team. But he's not a guy who's going to outscore anybody, outwork everybody. And I thought for the most part he played well in Game 3. I mean, I wouldn't say he was the best player on the floor, but I thought he bounded from Game 2 and gave a much more effort that they needed to win the ball game. I think the effort to win the ball game was there. I think the execution down the line was not.
Yeah.
And that's the difference.
Yeah. And
this wasn't about effort.
No, it has been about effort, except for maybe the second half against Golden State after Golden State had that game put away in Game 1. It just goes back to what you said. It's all credit to the Warriors. When they needed to make plays, they made plays. And that's what championship teams do. When you're on the road in crunch time, how do you do? They execute beautifully on the defensive end and the offensive end. And, I think Durant's 3 last night over LeBron in the final seconds probably clinched the MVP for him. If he hadn't, he already clinched it already. But I want to go back to what we talked about a little bit in the second portion of our last podcast of how fans need to enjoy these type of runs. They don't come around very often, especially Cleveland teams. They went over 60 years without a title. And what the Cavs fans did last night when Kevin Love left the floor in the last seconds of the game, giving him a standing ovation, was absolutely incredible. I saw them in the highlights and I watched a little bit of the replay. And it seemed to me that Cavs fans probably knew that this series is slipping quickly out of their grasp, but they stayed till the end, and they rewarded their team with constant energy. And it looked like they were enjoying the moment, like you said, teams need to do, especially in Cleveland. You made a great point last couple nights ago. Cleveland fans have to enjoy this because this hasn't come around for decades, and it may not come around for a long time again. And I think Cavs fans did a great job last night, truly enjoying the moment that they're living in right now. You know, it was just 5 years ago that they were back-to-back lottery picks, and people were like, where is this franchise going? And now you're on the verge of, let's be honest, you could very well see the same matchup for the fourth straight year next year, unless San Antonio goes out and signs a big-name player and they dethrone Golden State, or Boston gets a big-name player. But it could be Cavs Warriors round 4, and but I wanted to make that point that Cleveland fans are showing they're truly enjoying this moment.
I think you're right. I think
they know they're up against it. Let's be honest. Everybody knew going in, if they didn't want to admit it publicly, deep down everybody knew Golden State was a more talented team, and they were supposed to win the series. Vegas had them big-time favorites win the series. But that's a big credit to Cavs fans for enjoying the moment in a tough situation. It takes, it seems, easy to do, but after a sucker punch to the gut and losing in a championship series like you did, and I don't want to berate the point, but it was a typical Cleveland loss. In the last couple minutes, what could go wrong did go wrong.
Well, I mean, that's the
but they still play the end, though. Yeah, but
I know what you're saying. I know the history. I know what you're saying. Red Right 88. Go back to the days.
Well, don't forget the drive of the bubble.
Well, exactly. I said the Denver series with the Browns back in the 80s. You could go to the Indians and what has happened there. I understand. I'm not saying the narrative is incorrect. I'll just say the narrative's overplayed here because, in the sense, what the Cavaliers have versus all those other teams I mentioned have the best player in the game.
Yep.
And, and that's now, I'm not saying they have the best team. I'm saying they have the best player.
Well, they do. Yeah.
Now, and the Cavaliers are built around James. I mean, the minute James came back to Cleveland, they reworked this roster to fit his game.
Yes.
To give him the best opportunity to win championships, because that's exactly what you do when you have the best player in the game. You do the exact same thing. See, now Durant, people are calling the second best player in the game, and it very well may be, but the biggest difference here is he joined already a successful team. It wasn't the team was already built, and then he went in.
He joined a team that should have won the finals last year.
Style of game and play their game and make that team better. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying, and it's absolutely fair. That was his choice as a free agent, and I'm not here to bash him over that. I'm just saying there's a big difference. You build a team almost on the fly because you never really expected that to be handed as gift. Mm-hmm. And, and that's exactly what it was. It was a gift, when James decided to return home. And what the Cavaliers did is, they changed, front offices. They changed coaches. They've done, 180 of what they had planned, because you don't get a player of that caliber every day. I don't care who you are. That's the same thing going on in New England. Once identified as the all-star quarterback that he has become and the leader that he's become over the last 15 years, Bill Belichick was no fool. What he did is he made that team built around his quarterback offensively, and he made sure his defense was going to be a defense that can handle different type of things. Look, not every defense that they've had over the last 15 years has been a stellar defense, but it's been good enough.
Yeah,
because they want to build it around their best player, and that's Tom Brady. And that's what you do. You get a special player, you build around that player. That's no difference than what Elway did when he went out and recruited Manning. He knew damn well he's getting the best quarterback in football. Yeah, he may not have all the Super Bowls. He appeared in quite a few. And that's kind of where James is at.
Mm-hmm.
James has been in a lot of championship series, a lot of finals, but not necessarily has the jewelry, let's say, to show it. And what was it, in 5 Super Bowls and has two rings?
Yes.
And that's my point. You don't talk about that. The bottom line is that you're not always going to see it in every opportunity that presents, but you have to compete and try. That's just, I'll even go back to the NFL again and go out with, Tom Brady. They got 5 championships and appeared in 7 Super Bowls. I mean, they lost 2 to the Giants.
Yes.
So, you can't win. You're not going to win them all. I mean, when you're ranking quarterbacks and you're ranking players of all time and theories, yeah, championships matter on that level when you're talking about stuff like that. But the truth of the matter is, most players are never going to win everything they play. I think what happened with Chicago was an anomaly. With Michael Jordan, the three-peat twice. 6 appearances, 6 championships. That's domination. That is absolute domination that you don't see in sports very often. And on to show you that you can be really consistent and have an opportunity to win. And a good person we could talk about locally is Jim Tressel. What he did at Youngstown State, winning 4 championships in 6 appearances, and during his 15 years at Youngstown State as head coach, and then going to Ohio State and getting to 3 championship games, winning one of them. That's consistency. That shows you the volume of the character of the person you're talking about and what they have achieved. You're not going to win everything. I don't care who you are. And if you do, it's probably the competition around you maybe is not as stellar as what you have achieved, or what your team has achieved around you. The UCLA days, way before any of us, followed college basketball, the John Gooden days. The bottom line is he had the most talent. If he didn't win, shame on him. Mm-hmm. They should have been dominant, just like the Celtics in the 60s, way before both of us. They were dominant because they had the most talent. They had the best coach. They had the best organization, and that matters. And the Cavaliers have done well. Team on the run with the best player. They won a championship. They came back from 3-1, something that's never been done in NBA history. And yeah, they make it even more challenging this year. Chances of it are slim, but I guess, hey, the Red Sox came back from 3-0. 2 NHL teams have come back from 3-0 deficits. I don't necessarily predicting that. I would love to see it happen as a fan, but the truth of the matter is it probably isn't, because Golden State is just that good. They're really good at basketball.
Yeah, there is a matchup nightmare for anybody.
I getting on Twitter over the weekend and ended up meeting a person he's a huge Warrior fan, and we were tweeting back and forth throughout the series so far, and I've enjoyed it just to hear his point of view and stuff. But I keep telling him, I says, "What are you worried about? You have the better team.
Mm-hmm.
Just sit back and enjoy this." I was telling him the same thing that I mentioned on this podcast. Enjoy this. Don't blame referees. Don't blame officiating, because it doesn't matter. The players on the court will win the game or lose the game. Don't build in an excuse for yourself. The team is too good. And that's exactly what goes forward. If the miracle happens and the Cavs come back, it's not because of officiating. It's not because of a conspiracy. It's just it was meant to be. I truly don't think that's going to happen.
No.
I do think they may win a game, and I do believe your scenario of them winning 2 games is possible. I'm not saying it's probable, but I definitely believe it can happen. And that's what we're talking about in sports. You just get opportunity every game. look, it's going to be difficult for the Cavaliers to on Friday to go into the queue and play their best game because they know psychologically they're down 3-0. And it's a pride game more than anything ever. Pride games are tough to play. And you have to figure out if you need two things to happen in a game like that. Golden State has to come in not hungry, which I doubt will happen.
Yeah, they're going for 16.
Where they would come in and say, well, we're going to win this game. All we have to do is show up. And I don't think Steve Kerr will allow that to happen. Players and the character of the players and Durant and Curry and Thompson and Iguodala and all of them, that's not going to happen. They have too much high character on that team for that to happen. So it will be a hard-fought win if the Cavs win Game 4. And they'll move on, back to Oakland, and it'll be a difficult chore to try to win a Game 5 on the road. I'm not saying they'll even get there, but it's going to be the road is landmines, and for the Cavaliers to get through that landmines, not easy. It's going to be one of the hardest things any sports team has tried to accomplish in a long series, in a 7-game series type format when you're trailing 3-0. We've seen it. Spurs out-dominated the Cavaliers, a team that was there way before anybody else. And that was the dominance of LeBron James overpowering a team in Detroit who was the best team in the East that year. And just, willing his team to a victory and finding a way to get to the finals. And, that team had very marginal talent around him. This team that he has around now has much more talent. I think it has some great players with pride. And we're going to find out how much the game of basketball means to them. And I mean, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love, all the guys on the bench, RJ, Channing Frye, all the ones who may see minutes in this game coming up. But again, you're facing a juggernaut. They may lose again by 20 points at home. I would not be surprised just because we've seen this Golden State team win 15 in a row in the playoffs. I mean, how ridiculous does that sound? I mean, they've really only been challenged in a few games along the way. It's really has been dominating. And, them. I really, truly do. It's been a terrific thing. I'm not sure the Cavaliers could have won this series playing their best. I just think they're up against a team that's really playing high-quality basketball we've seen in a long time, especially in this era. When I mean this era, I'm talking about the last 10, 15 years. I don't think any Laker team could far more better, going back to the Kobe and Shaq days. And if you can actually have that matchup, which, is all theoretical. So who knows? But, of Curry and what he brings to their team is just phenomenal. And Klay Thompson has that range too. Maybe not as deep, but when he's on fire, you can't stop him. And you look at Cleveland, their counter with J.R. Smith, who is a fine player, who's played good defense in his since joining the Cavaliers, and has been that guy who can light it up from the outside on any given day, hit 6 or 7 threes in one ball game or 5 in a row. We've seen him do that. He's just not as consistent and as sharpshooter as Klay Thompson is, or as Curry is, obviously. I mean, and that's the difference in this ball game. The Cavaliers have some really good players, and when they're on, and they can beat any team when they're on. However, Golden State, their players, when you're looking at what they achieve and how they play the game, they create opportunities on second and third shots and quick turnovers, and they give up the layup for the 3-pointer and they hit it. And that is really the difference between these two teams this year, in my opinion, is, you added Durant and the Cavaliers could not counter that. This offseason, it's going to be talk about George. A lot of talk was him going to Boston. I think this offseason now, all of a sudden, you're going to talk about will the Cavaliers try to make a trade to add more depth to their team to counter Durant, if that's, winning championships is what it's about in pro sports. And when you're a team who can get there, you want to have that opportunity to win. And right now, I think Golden State has a chance to really make a historic run, barring, major injuries to some of their players.
Yeah, I got a two-part thing here. Number one, if I told you or told all Cavs fans when LeBron wrote his letter saying he was coming home, and I said, you guys are going to go to 3 straight NBA finals, you're going to lose 2 of them. I think every Cavs fan would jump at that and say, absolutely, we'll take it.
Well, yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, everybody wants to win.
Everybody wants to win all of them, but it's like you said, this Golden State team is set up for years.
I always hear that, and I always think that's like making a deal with the devil.
Yeah.
And, if I can have this, I get that.
Yeah.
And, and sports doesn't work that way. I like to say it does, but it doesn't. I think we love talking that way because we put it on a level that people understand and make it more realistic. Saying, it's like as a child, you're asked, can I have this piece of candy if I do this type of work around the house? You want the reward and what you have to do to get that reward, but it's not necessarily the correct way when, your mom or dad may have said, no, you're just not going to do it. But yes, you are going to clean the house, and that's just the way life is, and, you're not getting that ice cream tonight. You're cleaning the house because that's what you were told to do and you haven't done it yet, and that's just the way life is.
Yep.
And I honestly think that's what it comes down to. I mean, we all want to make the deal with the devil. I'll be a great person. I'll do all this if I can win the lottery tomorrow. I'll support all these charities and I will help my family and this and that. And what do? You pack up and leave for the smallest island in the world where you can't be left alone and you can travel and be left in peace, right? So let's be realistic. Everyone wants to make a deal with the devil, and in the end, we don't need to make that deal. All you have to do is give it your best opportunity. And I think in the end, you're going to find a will to win. A good point would be, Denver. I know you're a big Denver Bronco fan. That his last stand, that was all will on his part. His career was at the very end. He wasn't the same quarterback he was 2 years earlier or 3 years earlier. When he was throwing 50 touchdowns and leading the league in percentages and all that. But what you've seen here was a guy who could still play the game, still manage the game, and still help make a team that had a dominating defense just good enough to win a Super Bowl. And that's what he did. He went on the road to New England and defeated a very good New England Patriots team on the road to get to the Super Bowl. Those type of things happen. So you just gotta accept it for what it is. And, sometimes you're going to come up short, like the Buffalo Bills. They were the best team in the AFC in the night. There's no question they were the best team there in those 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
The best opportunity against the Giants, and it came up short, because they had a field goal kicker who was not as accurate as Matt Barr. I mean, it's just the bottom line. These things happen. It comes down to one kick. It comes down to one play. It comes down to one pitch. Look at the Indians.
Oh,
no,
you had to go there.
Well, see, the thing is, I'm disappointed. I'm heartbroken over the loss, and I tell everyone there's nothing worse than losing 2 World Series in extra innings in Game 7. But you know what? It's not the end of the world. And I honestly do believe that that opportunity to win a championship for the Indians is going to be there because they have the right ingredients available. I think they have a front office that does the right moves and is not afraid to roll the dice a little bit now than before. And I think you have a manager who's quite honestly one of the best in baseball. And anytime you put him in a situation where his make a difference in a ball game, and we've seen that during the playoffs last year, and you give him the talent around him. And that's one of the reasons why Boston made that huge comeback against New York years ago, was because of Terry Francona. Don't kid yourself. He had a big part of that. Yes, the players have to play the game,
Mhm.
but he actually managed those games phenomenally. He gave his players the best opportunity to succeed and to come in. And that's what Ty Lue has to do from this point on. It's not going to be easy, and it's a mountain to climb that very few have ever succeeded in climbing. But you're going to find out, more about this team long term, I think, exactly how they handle this game forward. But, I don't want to continue talking about the Cavs all this entire podcast, even though we could. Ohio State is in the midst of their coaching search after firing Thad Matta earlier in the week. You and I talked about McDermott from Creighton was given the opportunity. He turned it down.
Mhm.
And supposedly Mac has bowed out of it from Xavier. And a few others have been approached supposedly and turned down. This may turn into be a kind of a fiasco for Gene Smith, as we are talking about. And, I've seen published reports today saying maybe it's time for plan B to go with that interim coach, go with Gent or Paulus, as we were talking about.
I told you.
It's been done before at Ohio State, and it's been done a few times.
It worked out pretty well, didn't it?
And a few other schools. So anything's possible. I'm not sure, if they pulled out all their guns yet, that type of thing. But we'll find out. They think they're going to hire this within a week. It may take a little bit longer than they anticipated. We'll find out exactly what they want to do. But I'm at that McDermott turned it down, and the simple reason is it's not that I don't think he's not a good coach. I just don't think he was the number one choice. And if your number one choice is not interested or available, I think you have to make plans for that to happen. When Tressel was let go, when he was fired from Ohio State, they recognized the fact that getting a football coach in that late in the year was going to be very difficult. And moving forward, maybe not be the best scenario. That's why they went the route they did with Fickell. And it was the correct move because they ended up with Myers, and so it may be the correct move in Columbus this time to do it again. However, I think if they truly target someone, I think they're going to have a great opportunity to convince that person this is the time to take this job.
Part of me thinks that Gene Smith and Ohio State haven't divulged their number one choice. Listen, McDermott's a really good coach. Being a Duke fan and playing them a couple years ago in the second round with his son, Doug McDermott, they were a very formidable foe. They scared the living, daylights out of me, and we were fortunate enough to win that game late in the second half. But like you said, I don't know if their number one choice has been put out there yet. And speaking of the Cavs and Golden State, according to the Columbus Dispatch and multiple sources, Mike Brown is a candidate for the job. I don't know how serious of a candidate he is, but that would be a interesting choice. It seems also that Gene Smith is going back to his Iowa State days, and that hasn't been a bad thing for Ohio State. As we know, Meyer hired Tom Herman away from Iowa State to run the offense, and that worked out pretty darn good for the Buckeyes. With Fred Hoiberg maybe getting a look. Listen, I think Hoiberg is a really good coach, and I think if he had a better situation in the NBA, he could win like Brad Stevens. But I think he's a phenomenal coach. When he was at Iowa State, I love watching the Cyclones play, and I think he can get Columbus motivated again, excited. Part of me, and listen, I'm not an Ohio State fan, and maybe I overplay this a lot, but if I were an Ohio State fan, I'd want a guy with familiarity, maybe not with Ohio State per se, but with the region and or conference. Other names being thrown out are West Virginia's Bob Huggins, who I think Columbus and Ohio State would fall in love with that.
I think that's actually the worst choice.
Really?
I think Huggins does not fit Ohio State at all. I think he's perfect for West Virginia.
Well, yeah, I don't think he's going to leave.
I think he's a terror. Look, I think I think the Buckeyes are in the process of trying to find a coach that is probably, in my gut feeling, under 55, someone who is young enough that he's going to lead this team for the next 10, 15 years and have a chance to build a program and not only win Big Ten championships, but challenge for NCAA championships. And I honestly do believe they would rather find someone with some absolute coaching experience. If that is 5 years, or if it's 10 years, or if it's 2 years, I think it depends. I think when you look at the NBA and Mike Brown name, I'm not sure it's really the correct name. I'm not sure. He has no collegiate experience. That doesn't mean a lot if you're a good coach, but it is a tough turnaround to make your job when it used to be professionals age 19 to 35. Now you're in the business of educating and teaching basketball and recruiting 17-year-olds, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds. That's a big difference. Sure, that is the best scenario for someone who's been in the NBA for 25 years. I'm not sure Mike Brown fits. I understand the thought process. Why not? He may be available here in the next week. Yeah. And if you can talk to him, I don't have a problem talking to him, because it may lead to something you never expected. And those things do happen. And some people actually thrive at opportunities like that. So I'm not shutting the door. I just don't think it really fits. I think a Billy Donovan fits a lot better, who has the collegiate experience.
Speaking of
like Hoiberg, like you mentioned, who has the collegiate experience, is a much better fit out of the NBA. I think of Brad Stevens, if you really want to shoot for the stars. I'm not saying these things will happen, but I'm just saying I think those are much better fits than a Mike Brown out of the NBA. And quite honest with you, let's just say they revisit one of the people on their list. I think if they actually made an effort to convince that person that this is an opportunity that they don't want to pass on, I agree that they'll probably end up with that person, whoever that may be. I think McDermott was given the job offer, and I think it came down to a family decision, like he mentioned. I truly do. I've heard him speak in the past. He's been for other jobs, and he's turned it down. This is not unusual. I think he's found a home, and he's happy. Happiness means a lot in this world. Not every dollar, chasing every dollar does. I know we live in a capitalistic world, and I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying chasing every dollar is not necessarily brings happiness at the collegiate coaching level or the NBA as a player or as a coach. I'm not saying you shouldn't be compensated for the job and what the market provides in those sports, because the market in sports coaching is huge, especially at the collegiate level in Division I, and especially at the highest level in Division I. You're talking millions of dollars, and there's nothing wrong with being compensated properly. I just think sometimes someone may choose not to go after the last dollar versus more contentment where they're at and what they're trying to achieve. And I think McDermott and Clayton make sense. It may not make sense beyond one more year. It may make sense for the next 20 years. We just don't know that fact. But look at Billy Donovan. He went down to Florida and had a really successful run down there for a long time. Almost took the Magic's job after winning the national title, and then ended up going back to Florida and spent another 10 years there, and then taking off for the NBA. Look at Cal Perry, who's bounced back and forth. Look at Brown, but years ago in the NBA and collegians, and now back with it. So it can happen. And I think those who truly want to find the best opportunity will sooner or later find it, or they'll be moved aside. And that's how it works in sports, because it is about what you done for me lately. Ask Thad Matta. He had won 20 games, and that was last year. And now he's out of basketball.
Yep. Yeah, and it is nice to see small coaches, mid-major school coaches staying where they are. And like you said, a lot of it depends on happiness. I mean, how many job offers did Jim Tressel turn down when he was at YSU? A lot.
Right.
A lot of big
Yeah.
schools game calling, especially, and you may know the year better than I do. Was it 91 or 93 that Cincinnati was dead set? He was their guy, and he was coaching, and everybody had him. He's being hired today by Cincinnati, and Tressel showed up and won a national championship against Marshall.
Right.
And he turned down Miami of Florida too, from what I heard. So it is
Yeah.
nice to see that. I'm going to throw a name out there for the Ohio State job that I think is not getting a lot of run, but I think in the end he could be the best choice. It may not be the trendiest or the sexiest pick, but everywhere he's been, he's won. And that's Frank Martin. After an incredible run at South Carolina. The job that he's done at Kansas State and South Carolina, not only recruiting-wise, he's recruited a lot of good players, and Dozier and Thornwell and Jacob Pullen and Michael Beasley back in his Kansas State days. And at Kansas State, they were ranked top 5, top 10 in the country. And South Carolina this year went on a magical run to the Final Four and lost in the last seconds to Gonzaga. I think he'd be an absolutely big-time home run hire. Let me ask you this real quick. Do you think Ohio State's a top 20 job? Because I certainly do.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I think it's definitely a top 20 job. It may not be a top 20 team right now, but it's a top 20 job.
Yeah.
No. I'm just, the program itself may not be top 25. It might be more like top 40 right now.
You're
top 45.
Top 25 when Coach K took over, and look where they are now.
Right. Well, it takes time to build. Yeah. Look, Thad Matta had a great run, and I'm a Thad Matta guy. I think he proved himself. I mean, he's the winningest coach in Ohio State history. He took them to, Final Fours. He went to a championship game. He won 5 Big Ten titles, 4 Big Ten tournament championships. I mean, what he did was it was truly a legacy type thing. In this spot right now is because, like all in sports, it's what you've done for me lately and opportunity to make change. And let's be honest, I think there's, one of the things you and I will never understand is the pressure some of these coaches and universities are under from boosters.
Oh, yeah.
And the money that comes into the program to make change when things don't happen, and for whatever reason it may be. And I'm not saying that's the reason why, because I have no, checklist on this. I can only tell you how I look at it. And I definitely believe, it had an effect on it. Exactly how much of a level, 5% or 50%, I don't know. But yeah, I'm sure it had something to do with it. Because look, let's face it, the alumni of Ohio State's one of the largest in the country, and
they want to win
influential.
Now.
It's influential, and it's gonna have its power, and you're gonna see that all the time. I mean, that's what in the end got John Cooper fired, was the alumni. And, how can we continue
also
to support?
2-10-1, but
that was part of that's part of the alumni problem.
Yeah, yep.
And that's exactly what it became, and that's what Michigan, to Brady, why he got fired. It just, these things happen, and that's why Harbaugh's there, is because the alumni pushed it so hard. And I'm not saying that the university didn't want him and didn't went after him and hasn't paid for him or haven't paid for the assistants that he's hired, because they have. But that's just the way, that's conducting business today.
Tim, that's why.
And that's just the way it works.
I mean, the alumni and everyone in the community wanted Tressel YSU. Let me bounce this off you, too. I read something this morning on Twitter that I thought was absolutely crazy. And this person compared Thad Matta to John Cooper. He said he's a really good recruiter. He just couldn't win the big ones. And I sat back and I'm thinking, that is just that's insanity. How many big games did Thad Matta win at Ohio State? Because I remember one game against Duke. Against Duke, in the first half, he took us behind the woodshed and blew us out.
That's someone who wanted, again, I think a comparison that doesn't
that
work.
was ludicrous.
No, I mean, John Cooper was not the winningest coach in Ohio State's football history. He wasn't beating everybody. He did miss on recruits. Yeah, he had some great ones along the way, and he had some high-ranked teams that did not live up to
98.
expectation. There are, he won a Rose Bowl. That's his fame.
He beat Jake Plummer.
His claim to fame at Ohio State is winning a Rose Bowl. I mean, fine. I don't want to take anything away from him, but the truth of the matter is, he had a 13-year run that was, mediocre deep down.
Yeah.
And that's just the truth, because, if he was 7-5 against Michigan or 8-5 during Michigan in that time period, it would have been a different storyline. But like you mentioned, he didn't have it. He lost 10 times to them, and you just can't do that. And, it's no doubt about it. I mean, Jim Tressel used to talk about that. Beating rivals means something, not just to a coach's legacy, but to a program. And that's why do you think Harbaugh was recruited so heavily to take that job in Michigan? Why they wanted him there? Because, they've lost to Ohio State traditionally over the last 10, 12 years, and they can't. Difficult pill to swallow. A real rivalry. You want to see teams go back and forth and have opportunities. When you see domination on one side or the other, it takes away from the rivalry to some extent. History does matter. And I think history, meaning when you have 50, 60, 70, 80 years of competition, or, like that series, it does matter. But, if dominates the other school consistently, it does take a little bit away from it on a national level. Maybe not on a intercollegiate, interconference style, but it does matter on a national level, because, I think if you talk to a football fan, in Arizona, who is just a huge college football fan, and said Ohio State, Michigan this weekend, and he goes, well, Ohio State will win again, So I'm not as excited. But if it's two teams that have legitimate shot at beating each other at each other's home field, which is what that rivalry has always been about, then it changes everything. USC, Notre Dame mattered when USC and Notre Dame were able to go into each other's stadium and win ball games years ago. And now it hasn't happened.
No.
And that makes a big difference. So,
it
does matter. It does matter.
And that's a good point. I grew up around the Notre Dame USC rivalry, and I've been fortunate enough to attend a lot of those games. Unfortunately or fortunately, I was at the Bush Push game, which Pac-12 refs still suck, but I'm not going to be bitter 12 years later. But
what did I tell you about officiating? Don't blame it.
No, they didn't blame it. Ambrose wouldn't blue coverage, but no,
I'm just.
It's I want to throw an idea at you, and if I'm Jared Calhoun, by the way, I hope a lot of fans went out tonight to greet him at the Eastwood Mall. He deserves our support. I think he's going to win big time here, and I think you agree with that too. But if I'm Jared Calhoun, I'm making a phone call down to Thad Matta, and not coaching, and not come help me out. Just picking his brain. How do you recruit the state? How do you win in this conference? How do you win as a mid-major at Butler? Because Thad's been there, done that. He knows this landscape. It's not the same recruiting.
I think most coaches do talk to each other. And I think most coaches do, especially young coaches, reach out to other coaches. And that's not uncommon.
Doing that too.
Just to talk philosophy and stuff like that, and how to run a program, or what you do differently than I have done, to try to take something out of your program to add it to mine, or tweak what I've been doing. I think a lot of coaches do that across the board. You see that in football, and you see that in basketball, and I think you even see it in baseball, along the way. And I think all sports, you find that kind of, if you want to call it that. And it's definitely never a bad thing when you can find someone with experience and talk to them about it and pick their brain and say this or that. I think, during a season it's a little different. And now if you happen to have a relationship with someone, it matters. John Robick years ago when he was here at Youngstown State had that relationship with Cal Perry. They would talk daily. He would even talk to, Brown when he was, still around, with the Sixers and that. And hey, those are the things that matter. If you can find that, it matters. Yep. And you may, go see a team in, I know Jim Tressel used to talk about, he used to take visits down in Miami, Florida back, when Coker was there, when he was still here, and stuff like that. You do things like that just to find out what they're doing. It's not necessarily I want to learn about their playbook or anything. It's how they run their program and what they choose to do and how they handle situations. And, hey, I can incorporate something similar to this. Or, that's a great motivational tool. Or that isn't. I don't see how that works, and you compare and contrast. And I think that happens across the board, especially at the collegiate level. And you don't necessarily see it at the professional level because of the competition level so high and the worriness of someone stealing information from one club to another is today is, espionage level. It's crazy, but it's true. However, I think you see that more at the collegiate level where you may see even a coach who, let's say, may actually go talk to a basketball coach at a different university and just talk about philosophies and how he runs his program and how he checks on academics or whatever the case may be. I think you see more of that at the collegiate level than you do at the professional level. But I think you definitely see coaches who reach out to either former coaches or retired coaches and those who are taking sabbaticals or forced sabbaticals because they can't find a job and reach out to them because you never know what you're going to learn. That's kind of like Ohio or Cleveland this past year. Bryles coming up to the Browns a couple of times talking offense and philosophies with and I don't necessarily thinking that, this guy knows offense or he knows the players that the Browns have. Yeah, that gives them an in, but it's more to learn about, what do you do? How do you run your practice? What are you trying to show here or this and that, and see what you can incorporate. This, I think it happens across the board. It's just, it's not as publicized and as well known, but if you talk to a coach one-on-one even at the high school level, you're going to find many coaches talk to other coaches at different schools and just to find out how they run their program and what they do and what they do in the off season, how they motivate their kids. And that's not uncommon. I think you see more and more of that as time goes by.
Speaking of coaches taking sabbaticals, do you think Bob Stoops is done coaching? Because I don't. I got a weird feeling we're going to see Bob Stoops back on the sideline next year. And I'll tell you where, possibly. Too.
I don't know where. I haven't given much thought. I
know where he's going.
What do you think, Iowa?
No. Nope.
Big Ten?
Nope. You think
he's going to go to Notre Dame?
I think September 1st, 2018. You think
he's going to be in Notre Dame, don't you?
When Michigan comes to Notre Dame, it's going to be Harbaugh and Bob Stoops. Stoops has 2 houses in Chicago, and I'm not one to buy into all that.
I understand
because John Gruden bought a house there in 2005, and people were dead set he's the guy. No, but Stoops has 2 houses in Chicago, as reported by the Tribune. That's an hour drive for people that don't know from South Bend to Chicago.
Right.
And secretly all along, I think he's angled for that job. And I think now he's at a point.
I don't think Notre Dame has the. This may disappoint you, but I don't think Notre Dame has that.
It doesn't have the allure. No, it doesn't have the allure anymore. But to some people, well,
it's a tough gig. It's a tough gig.
Don't tell Lou Holtz that.
I know it's a tough gig. Well, it's a different gig. It's totally different when he had it in the late 80s, early 90s than it is today.
Yeah,
Recruiting and playing in a conference, not being in a conference,
cooker.
being in a semi-conference scenario. It's just totally different today. I think it's the toughest job to have in sports. I think it's just difficult to win because the academic standards that Notre Dame has today makes it very difficult. You have to be Lou Holtz, who brought it down to another level to get certain players opportunities to play there. And that's just the way it works in sports today. I don't know if Notre Dame's willing to take that again, like they did back then. And I also wonder, I'm not saying no. I think it's a great challenge for whoever takes that job in the future because of the academic
Let me bring up this then.
But I think it's difficult, being an associate member of the ACC. And
I think that's stupid, by the way. I think that is stupid. I don't want to get on a soapbox right now because we got 4 months till football season starts, and I'll wait till September to get on my soapbox about the half in, half out of the ACC. I think that's stupid. But a lot of people I talk to around here are, well, what if Bo leaves next year? And every year it seems November, December, and maybe January, depends on if YSU is still playing. I don't want to call it anxiety, but the nervousness is, well, what if Bo leaves? Who we turn to? What if Bo leaves? And how great would it be if Bo, who I believe will win a national championship here, he rides off in the sunset somewhere. Once his kids are graduated from Mooney and Pat's done at Notre Dame, and another Mooney boy comes in with the cupboard reloaded, and he continues to make YSU. I'm dreaming here, Tim. I'm dreaming.
You're allowed to dream. You're allowed to dream.
You know what? On June 8th, when we're feeling pretty good about ourselves, give me till 4:30 on September 1st after the Pitt game and ask me how I'm feeling. But, I mean, it's setting up perfectly for us, Tim. It's just making Ron Strollo's job maybe a little bit easier.
Got to keep those Mooney boys home. That's all I got to say. Right?
I tell you what. Like we were talking about a little bit earlier, I think
I'm not too concerned about Bo's future. Whatever Bo chooses to do in the long term is Bo's choice. And I think he's going to be here for another few more years. And we'll see exactly what happens. Yeah, he may stay here for a long time. He may.
I hope he does. I love him.
5 years and take off. I have no idea.
You know what, though?
I'm not concerned about him leaving tomorrow. Put it that way. No. If it happens, so be it. But I really don't think that is.
No, and we'll talk about that as we get closer to football season. I know yesterday with
scenario out there. I get it.
Yeah, yesterday with him, with Stoops leaving OU. I just started dreaming. Because it's just, Hey,
we dreamt about Pelini, and he's here. So maybe you never know.
And I tell you what, though, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I told my friend when Wolford left, and I want to talk about Eric Wolford a little bit as we get towards football season because I think people give him too much of a bad rap. But I said my first choice is Bo Pelini.
And, sure.
And I didn't know anything. I didn't talk to anybody down there about that.
Hey.
But
you never know.
Hey,
you never know.
I'm not complaining at all.
No, and that's the thing.
I'm not complaining at all.
I think we all talked about it, but no one ever thought it would happen. And
it was
when
like a what-if scenario
came about, it made total sense. And look, Bob Stoops retiring or resigning from OU was a big surprise, I think, to everybody. Surprise that he decided to step down is just when he decided to step down.
Yeah, but what is the surprise?
Kind of like what happened to Ohio State firing Thad Matta is when he decided to do it. If he made the announcement that this was going to be his last season, and at the come January or after January, decided to step down, no matter what his record would be, if it was undefeated or if it was 2 losses or whatever the case may be for the Sooners, I would have not been surprised. 18 years at one place. Yeah, it's maybe a time for a change of
18
venue.
years with the same president and athletic director is unheard of in college sports nowadays. And that's a credit to Oklahoma and what they've done. They've done a masterful job out there. And
You got to remember his name came up. His name came up for the Ohio State job when Jim Tressel got
Ohio
it.
State and Florida too.
So you never know.
A lot of
I know.
Florida
I'm just saying his name comes up everywhere.
Yeah.
If anything, I think he's headed to the NFL.
Really?
Yeah, I thought it was a great shot. He may take the Browns job a few years back and a couple other jobs that opened up. I think the opportunity maybe to jump to the NFL.
Taking the Bears job?
He's at that age. He's at that age where if he can, now's the time to do it.
Yeah.
Hey, he's about 52
for a couple years and come on back. Yeah, he's in his early 50s. And I heard, I think he's 52 because somebody said he might be a little older than that. But somebody said a couple days ago that he was going to coach a while. He doesn't want to be a look at it.
Right. Well, here's the thing. You could stay there forever. You get to a certain level in college sports as a head football coach that if you have a desire to coach at the NFL level,
Brian Kelly,
you have to make yourself available for that possibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Usually it happens between ages like 48 to 52 to 54. These coaches then recognize they've been there for 15 years, wherever they may be, and the opportunity to make that switch is there. Perfect example was Butch Davis when he took it from Miami to Cleveland. There's been a few of them over the years have done it. And, you want to give yourself the opportunity to experience the pro level and that challenge. And he's been a name that's been bounced about in many jobs over the last few years. So him leaving now may leave that door open for an NFL bid for a job here come January or February when those jobs really open. And it would not shock me that he's putting himself in position for a job in the NFL more than a collegiate job.
Mm-hmm.
That's just speculation. And who knows exactly what will happen. He may stay retired and surprise us all. It does happen.
I wouldn't be surprised at that.
I think everyone expects him to coach again. Everyone, I think, thinks Thad Matta will coach again. But there's a % chance that neither one of them will. And
there's a better chance Stoops coaches than Matta with Matta's health concerns. But, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, and that's the case. I mean, you never know how that's going to work out. But I do believe, I think Stoops is putting himself in position to become an NFL head coach. At least have that opportunity to interview for jobs and not have a fan base over you and not have a president of university or an AD, saying, oh, we can do this, we can do that, to, entice you to stay by resigning now and handing it over to Riley. And that gives him full opportunity to look at all opportunities in front of him. And if that means becoming an assistant coach with his brother or something like that for a year or two because he just wants to be around it, he could do that. If the Notre Dame job came open and it intrigued him enough, he could do that. If the NFL job came open, he could pursue it. So I think, and no one can hold it against him, kind of like Myers.
Yep.
Myers left Florida, took that 1 year off. And the Ohio State job open, and he says, this is the only job I would have came back to coaching for.
Yep.
So you never know what job that is. Could it be the Cleveland Browns? Could it be the Pittsburgh Steelers? Could it be, the Chicago Bears? I don't know. It could be Notre Dame. It's possible, but I just think he's making himself available for all opportunities, and that opportunity may come NFL more than come collegiate in the next year or two.
That Notre Dame, Ohio State 2-game series in a couple years might be really interesting now if Stoops and Meyer on the two sidelines. Boy.
Yeah. Woo. You never know.
Boy,
you never know. It's possible.
Yeah. I just saw that yesterday, and I think he's going to South Bend. It may not be next year, but a weird part of me thinks that Bob Stoops be on the sideline in South Bend in a couple years.
Well, let me put this scenario. I mean, we're just speculating. So, I mean, it's pure speculation, and then this is just throwing this out at you with the history. And I'll say the same thing with Myers. If he ever has an inkling to go to the NFL,
Now
he's
it's
going to
the
do it
time.
in the next year. He's going to do it in the next year or two.
Yep.
I'm not sure he will, simply because of his health and his health scares that he's had in the past. And I wouldn't be shocked that if now he steps down from Ohio State and walks away from coaching altogether, simply because
Give him one more
he don't
championship.
want the stress level any longer. Hey, look, that's a high stressful job. I don't care who you are. Very few people can handle it for 15, 20, 30 year type scenarios in today's sports. And, they say 7 to 10 year lifespan in one's place, because you don't want to be there too long where you fall in love with the place and they fall out in love with you, kind of what happened in Mata. And I think that's, a scenario that could happen at Ohio State down the line. I'm not expecting it to happen this year, but I think as every year passes and you know the history of the coach, you look at Myers' history, what I think he was years at Florida.
He was hired at Florida in 2005. So he was there for 6 or 7 years. Yeah.
6, 7 years. So you're right in that window, and you never know. Anything's possible. I'm not predicting that. I'm just speculating. But I think Bob Stoops putting himself in the best position for himself in the future, because he can make that decision to go in any direction he wants, and either another collegiate job or pursue a professional job at the NFL level as a head coach, and really see what he can do at that level, where as a type of players you're dealing with versus, again, you get out of the business of 18-year-olds and 19, 20-year-olds and get in the business of adults who are 22 to 35 years old and playing professionally. It's a different world. But I think it's interesting. Look, the Youngstown tree of coaches is huge
and very successful.
Seen it, from Bob Davie when he was at Notre Dame, and now I think we see out
in Mexico. In Mexico still, I believe, yeah.
Right. And, you look at, the Stoop brothers, you look at the Bellini brothers, what, Jim Tressel did during his, heyday, both at Youngstown State and Ohio State. The Northeast Ohio coaching tree is strong, and it's going to continue to get strong in the future. I'm sure there's coming up through the ranks that he may make that national debut someday soon. And we'll just have to wait and see who they are and how it goes. But everything comes in eras, and you got to give, Bob Stoops credit. He reestablished the Sooners program for what they wanted it to be, a national program.
Yes, he did.
And he may only won one championship, but you know what? He had 18 years of really leading that program back to a top 10 program, and where people love to talk about the Sooners and what they bring to college football. So on that level, I'm happy for the guy. We'll see what happens.
He won everything he can there. He can't win anymore.
Exactly. You get to a certain level, you have to make a decision in life. And I think when you're at that age, around 30, when you're at that age around 50, and you're a coach, either at the collegiate level for basketball or football, and you want to look at the potential of going to the pros, available for that opportunity. And I think he's doing that. And if he chooses to take another collegiate job, that's because that's where he wants to be.
Yeah, it's like Lou at Notre Dame. How long can you, just maintain a program? And I don't mean be mediocre, but he's won a national championship. He's been in 2 more. He's made the playoff. He's won more Big 12. He won more Big 12 titles than had home losses. That's absurd. And it's not like Oklahoma was bringing in our sisters of the poor each week. They played Notre Dame and Ohio State, and Houston
Texas
was nationally ranked. And, so they're bringing in some highly ranked teams. I think they brought in Tennessee. So it's not like that he didn't play anybody there. So, I maybe we just got to a point where I know his sons are getting of the age, they're playing high school football and they're starting to get some recruiting offers. And, that's a big time. We saw with Urban Meyer that he wanted to spend more time with family. And in a couple years, if Meyer wins one more or two more at Ohio State, I mean, it's totally possible. They're loaded again this year, and they're, top 3 in everybody's pronostications that really don't mean much right now. But, he's already a grandfather to one. He'll probably a cut more in the future. And, if he beats Michigan up 4 or 5 times in a row, and he wins one more, why not step away? But,
exactly. Hey, look, that's exactly what I'm talking about. These coaches, I mean, you can even look at Nick Saban, for Alabama, when he was at LSU, he left LSU for Miami Dolphins to pursue that NFL, opportunity. And, and then
because he knows the coach will always be there for him.
Exactly. And look, these coaches all want that opportunity to challenge themselves. And I wouldn't be surprised if he chooses to do that. I think this is really, if you're looking forward, this is his opportunity to make himself available to the NFL without any baggage behind him. And that is really appealing, I think, to a owner who may want to pursue him, whoever that may be, whatever team that is in the NFL that's going to be looking for the next head coach, because he will be, you don't have to, the university president or AD or boosters all getting involved in your recruitment of that person. And I think available makes it a lot easier to leave one job for another. And when you have no job, it's really easy to make that decision if you want to come back. Ask Urban Meyer. It worked perfect for him.
Yes,
I don't know if he, no one foreseen that Jim Tressel was going to leave Ohio State when Meyer stepped down, from Florida, but it just worked out that way.
Yeah.
And you just don't know what road and what forks in the road are going to come and which ones you're going to take. And, you're going to go left or right or whatever may happen. So I honestly do believe that this is a great opportunity for Stoops to decide what he wants to do. If the NFL's there, he can grab it without any reprisal. And if it's collegian, he can jump back in and rebuild a program and, spend the next 10, 15 years there and then retire into the sunset. And you know what? Which is fine, whatever the case may be. But he's now available to make that choice on his own. And that, I think, is appealing to a lot of people who are professional coaches at the collegiate ranks. Once they reach the age 45 to about 52, 53, they want that one last chance to make their own decision on what they want versus staying where they're at. It's like Saban, when he went back into the collegians, I think he made the decision that Alabama would be his final stop. Way it's going to be. And, we'll just wait and see. I think, like I said, he's at that perfect age where you get that opportunity.
Yeah, he's a lot of
make
options.
that jump.
And
well, it can happen.
He looked really good in blue and gold visor, though. Really good. He looked really good underneath that golden dome. Really good.
Hey, yeah, you never know. You never count your chickens before they hatch, and you never know. You'll never know in the coaching carousel where someone may land.
No.
And that brings us back to Ohio State. And we'll just wait and see. It could be, like I said, it could be an NBA coach making that switch back to the collegiate level.
It could be a name we've never heard of.
They want control of the program. It could be an interim scenario where they give it to Paulus or to Jen. Wouldn't that be interesting? Because you and I talked about Paulus for the Youngstown State job.
Yeah.
If he ended up staying for that interim tag for a year, him or Jen, it could happen. I'm not saying it will happen, but
I think it could be.
I think each day that passes, that thought process is going to get stronger.
Yeah, I think it could be a name we haven't heard of yet. I know Gene Smith supposedly had told some of the players, some of the upperclassmen, that he expects to have a coach by this weekend. So we'll see. I mean, he could already have his mind made up like he did on Urban Meyer. I remember watching, I forget what game was, and they removed Meyer off the telecast because it was so speculated that he was going to take the job, and they had to deflect anything. And, so he could already have his guy right now, and, he's waiting until tomorrow or Monday or not. So we don't know. It's
we'll just have to wait and see. I think Gene Smith has his work cut out for him, no matter what happens.
This is a big hire for him, though.
I think there's going to be scrutiny done on this for years to come, no matter how well or how the next coach does at Ohio State and how this was handled. It's going to be dissected, and it's going to be really, I think, in the end, it's going to be the exclamation point on Gene Smith and his career at Ohio State because of how this came down, when the decision was made, and who was hired, and how they do.
Yeah, it's
it could blemish. It could be a big blemish. It could be a huge exclamation point, talking about what a great move and great AD he has been, and success level. He has done a great job at Ohio State ever since taking over. So we'll wait and see exactly where this leads the Buckeye Nation in the basketball pursuit of a new head coach. Anthony, another hour gone by.
Yeah,
it goes by quick.
It flies by. Yes, it does. You know what, though? It was nice to talk about some other stuff other than the Indians right now because it's been ugly. It's been they've been terrible right now, but it's nice to talk about some things that are off the cuff a little bit and things that don't get the run every day. It's right now the NBA, the NHL, the Indians. So it's nice to talk about college basketball and college football and
I agree. Look, baseball is a marathon. Don't get up too high in June. Don't get too low in June.
I'm too low right now. I'm too low right now.
But be concerned in the sense that you don't want to lose sight of where you're at. Hey, I mean, the Indians aren't, they're right where they need to be. I know the Twins are playing well, but, bottom line is I don't expect the Twins to hold on. They may surprise me and be that Cinderella team this year in the Central. We'll wait and see. Talent level of the Indians in the long run will win out. They're going to have to be more consistent. So. They're going to have to be more consistent, and they're going to have to challenge themselves and to find this identity that I've been talking about all year long because I don't think they found it yet. But,
they haven't found that spark
all
yet.
Summer to talk about that.
Yeah, that spark's not there right now, and God willing it happens soon because the past 2 weeks have been ugly. This is, like you said, it's a marathon, not a sprint, but it's been ugly and very tough to watch the past couple weeks. But, it's nice to talk about some things other than baseball right now. And, we'll see.
Yeah, let's try to hook up. We'll have to see what the schedule looks like after Game 4 Friday night for the Cavaliers. The Penguins are just moments away from winning 6-0 in Game 5 to take a 3-2 lead there as they hold the ice. Each team winning on home ice. So back to Nashville, this series will go. When I went there last time with the Penguins having the lead in the Stanley Cup Finals. So it should be interesting.
So much for Matt Murray struggling, huh?
Championship. The Penguins are hanging in there trying to win their back-to-back. So we'll see what happens. All right, we're going to get more into that maybe Friday or Saturday. We'll try to hook back up and talk about the NBA Finals, see what happens in Game 4, talk more about the NHL and the Penguins' pursuit of back-to-back, Ohio State and its basketball search, Bob Stoops and his next coaching search. Hey, job. Northeast Ohio, you never, ever bored Northeast Ohio when it comes to sports. So much going on. And Anthony, my thanks for you here on Radio MVP as we bring our sports podcast, number 8 on our day or our voyage here, I should say.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure tonight. It's always fun to just talk for an hour and a half about sports, and really passionate about this area in sports. I think that's shown through, and getting excited. We're we're slowly ticking away the days till we shock the world at Pitt again.
There you go. We're getting there.
Again. That's right.
We're getting there.
Trevor.
All right,
Yeah,
Anthony, have a great night. All right, we're going to talk to you soon. Take care.